is men and mental health. And for those that do not know me, my name is Audrey Brooks. I am the CEO and founder of Brooks Counseling Services and WW Inc., a nonprofit for women. Tonight's guests are Kevin Gibson and Matt Johnson. Welcome to Live Chat with Audrey.
Hello
Matt,
there. Hello. Good to be here.
okay. Tonight is going to be an awesome chat because we're talking about men and mental health. And we're talking about is it shame or stigma? So for you guys that are joining us, please join in with the discussion. If you have any questions or any information you want to hear, please type in the chat. And before we get started, let's start off with Kevin. And Kevin, introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be here, and it's good to see you all again, Ms. Brooks, and it's a pleasure to meet you, my brother, Matt.
Yes,
again,
sir.
Kevin Gibson, born and raised native of North Carolina. I moved to South Florida 10 years ago in clinical counseling and marriage and family therapy. And I've been here ever since. I've been a practicing clinical therapist for a while now. I work primarily with youth, and I also work with the families and couples. So I'm excited to be here.
All right, thank you, Kevin. We are definitely excited to have you with us. And Matt, please introduce yourself to the audience tonight.
All right. Well, my name is Matt Johnson. I am born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, but I've been living in South Florida since 2017. I'm a graduate of Malone University with a bachelor's in business administration, Old New Testament studies. I have continuing education in behavioral, social, and developmental psychology. I do have a mental health advocacy organization called Journaling Saves Lives. So I'm very proud of that because I just secured a trademark for that name. So I'm excited. And I'm also
Congratulations.
thank you. And I'm also certified in mental health first aid. And then also just one last thing, and I'm very excited about this. I'm the pastor of a newly planted church, House of Love Ministries, in Tamarack. So keep me in prayer that as we go forth in that as well.
Thank you. And I just want to thank you guys for joining me tonight because this is something that is very well needed, not only before the pandemic, but especially now during the crisis that we are in, because not only do we have men that are leading our households and probably trying to figure out what they should do, how they should do it. So tonight is a much needed conversation. And before we get into the conversation, I just wanted to give the audience some statistics about men and mental health. According to American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, men died by suicide at a rate of 3.54%, higher than women in 2017. And Mental Health America reports that 6 million men are affected by depression in the United States every single year. Did you guys get that? 6 million men are affected by depression in the United States every single year. And the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism puts the annual number of men dying due to alcohol-related causes at 62,000 compared to women at 26,000. That is almost, that's about 3 times more than women. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And then men are also 2 to 3 times more likely to misuse drugs more than women. Depression and suicide are ranked as the leading cause of death among men, and yet they are still far less likely to seek mental health treatment than women. And when I read those statistics, I knew that men are less likely to seek help than women, but just reading those numbers made me really want to have this conversation tonight, because with the things that's going on in the news with our black men and being killed by policemen and all of these things that's going on with our black men, this is a discussion that we really need to have to uplift our black men,
Yeah.
because we definitely want to let them know that we care about them, we support them, and we are here for them. So I want to thank you guys again for this conversation.
Thank
So
you.
we will get right into it, and I will start off with the questions with Kevin. And then once Kevin answered, then Matt, you can just jump right in with your answer. The
Okay.
first one is, from your experience, do you think that men, specifically black men, are open to discussing mental health? And if not, why?
Well, before we go answer that, I think it's important that we establish what mental health is. Because
Yes, that's
there is a lot of stigma on just the phrase of mental health.
mental
A
health.
lot of people think it just simply means, oh, if I feel sad, then I have mental health issues.
Yes.
But it encompasses a lot more than that. So it includes our emotional, our psychological, and our social well-being. Now, this is important. It affects how we think, how we feel, how we act. It also determines how we handle stress and how we make decisions. And so, if you look at all of these different things, encompasses what mental health is. And so, to answer the first question about, do I think that men, specifically black men, are open to mental health? Well, I think we are moving in the right direction. I think we're doing better than what we once were. But
Mhm.
my head is not in the sand either to know that everybody is not open to it. I think because of the public, I guess, display of trying to end the stigma, a lot of
Mhm.
people are catching on, like the celebrities, or coming out saying that, hey, listen, I'm in therapy for this, that, and the other, and so a lot of people are jumping the wave. But here's what I would say that will make it much more impactful. When it's someone that is accessible to you, right? So like
Mhm.
your father, your brother, your uncle, your cousin, even your pastor. Somebody is saying that that they're tangible, that you can reach out to, and they say, you know what, man, listen, I'm in therapy for childhood trauma. And when it's related to somebody that you can actually see and that you are close to, it makes it that much more impactful for you to start to seek out that help. So I think we just really have to end the stigma as far as it just being for crazy people, or even just for a lot of black people think that therapy for white people. And so I think, and also on top of that, is that we really need to get black men who are qualified to become therapists as well.
Yes.
You don't. I mean, there are many different times when I'm in session with clients for the first time, just their reaction when they see me. We could have different life experiences, but because it's somebody that looks like me,
Mhm.
their guard is let down. You understand what I'm saying? Their guard become let down because it's the exposure to being with somebody that looks like me. And so a lot of times I don't even have to know anything about it, and then they can say, "Man, I'm so excited to see somebody that looks like me." You might not know me, I might not know you, but at the same time, just because you look like me, I believe that there can be some hope here for this council. So, I mean, I can go on. You got two preachers here.
Yes.
So I'm a
Yes. Yes.
yeah, Matt, jump in.
And Kevin, I just want to piggyback on what you just said about they feel more comfortable when they see somebody that looks like them. And as you know, that's part of therapy,
Right.
Feeling safe, having that safe place where they can open up and be able to confide in you. And that's really true. When I believe that when black men specifically see that You, as a Black man, as a therapist, they can let their guard down and say, well, hey, I don't mind talking to him.
Yeah.
I don't mind letting my guard down. I don't mind being able to share my emotions, my fears, my strengths with them. So that's really important for them to open up, because if they cannot feel safe, then therapy won't help them. If they feel like, hey, I got this guard up and I'm gonna keep it up because I don't feel safe with you. So that's very important. So Matt, the same question. Do you need me to repeat it?
No, I was going to repeat it just for clarity's sake. If I understood, and actually I have a question here. It said, do you think men, specifically Black men, are open to discussing mental health, and if not, why? Um, Generally speaking, if we're just talking about discussing a topic, most men will gladly jump in and give their opinion,
Mm-hmm.
as we normally do with anything. But as it relates to our individual life, I would
Mm-hmm.
say some men are very open and honest in their sharing. Then you have some men that are so, meaning like if you pry them a little bit, they'll open up and share what's going
Yeah.
on inside and just to talk about mental health from a personal perspective. And then you have a third category of men, which are just totally closed. They're not going to have that conversation as it relates to them individually. So now I want to just kind of deal with the last category of men, the men that won't open up and have that conversation about mental health as it relates to their individual life. Uh,
Right.
Usually, from my worldview and experience, and I just jotted down some notes to help me guide my thoughts. The mindset that's usually found at the center of those men that won't open up is this: they've either been taught or told having mental problems means you haven't done a good job of keeping a grip on the components of your life, and we know that's a faulty mindset, and that's just not true. Or they've been taught or told if you have mental problems, you can simply will them away by sheer willpower, and we know that's faulty and it's erroneous as well. And there are many other underlying unlearned mindsets, but unfortunately, many times it comes from being around unlearned people in our environments that contribute to why we have certain stigmas and why we have certain stereotypes. Now, and the statement rings true that we are products of our environment. So, usually, generally speaking, I was, in an environment of somewhat balanced because I had some uncles and some preachers and godfathers and things. You had some that was foolish, and then you had some that taught you the right things. They said take care of your mental and emotional health and so forth. So it just depends on the man. I don't want to categorize
Yeah.
any man because we can only speak from our worldview, and we're a product of our environment. So if your environment provided you an opportunity to be open, honest, to share, to have discussions, then of course, because not every Black family was just, treated this topic like it was taboo. There are a lot of Black families that had these discussions even back in the day. My grandmother was sharing. So it just depends on, your upbringing, where you're from, your environment and so forth. So.
Right. And I want to piggyback on that again. I'm going to give this to Kevin. And also, I want to ask you, with the men seeking therapy, I know that you probably have some type of program that you would use according to what Matt said, because you have different personalities when it comes to men. You have some men that would have that very enclosed personality where you will have to use a different approach with them. Then you'll have that man that has that really aggressive, I'm a man type personality where you would have to use a different type of approach. And then you have that one person that's in the middle of the road where, okay, I'm not sure about who I am. I'm stuck between my mama want me to be this person, my dad want me to be this person, so I'm kind of stuck in the middle. So I know as a therapist, you have certain approaches that you use for each individual to try to get them to be relaxed and open up.
Right. I mean, I think the biggest thing any practicing clinical therapist will tell you that the number one importance of developing a therapeutic relationship in the therapy session is building rapport with the client, building relationship with them. So it doesn't matter. You can have just for an example, if Matt and I were going to go see the same therapist, just because we're Black does not mean that they should deal with them one and the same.
Right.
So you deal with the client based off of where they are.
Right.
Where they are. If they are, hesitant about therapy, then you're not as abrasive with it as to push it down the throat. But then if you have somebody that's already willing, they're open, then there's a different dynamic in which how you approach that. But I think the fundamental thing is that the end goal is the same. It's just how you get to that. It may take 2 sessions, or it may take a whole year. I mean, you just never know.
You never know. Right.
Specific person, and that's why it takes somebody that is trained, but then also using wisdom and discernment and having the voice of God in your ear to know and be able to apply the charisma, the words of knowledge and all these types of things for different people. So it's just dedicated to individually based.
Right. And the reason I asked that for anyone that's listening for as a male, I just want them to understand that therapy is not one size fits all. It's based on the individual. And I just wanted them to understand that as well. Okay, the next question. How does shame or stigma play a part in men discussing mental health? And Kevin, we'll start with you.
Okay. I just think by nature, if you just look at the nature of men and who we are to the core, it's in our nature to lead. Right? So it's in our nature to be able to lead. It's in our nature to be able to want to fix situations and want to fix things. And the problem is whenever you're able to do that, and if you start telling somebody that they need to seek help, then it challenges your authority. It challenges, it can potentially challenge your manhood in the aspects of understanding, like, oh, if I seek help, then that means I'm weak. Then there's a weakness in me being able to seek help, but then not being able to discern and understand that in order for you to become your best self, that God designed you to be, it's going to take some help. You know what I'm saying? It's going to take somebody to be able to facilitate or navigate whatever's going on in your life. A lot of times people think when you come to therapy, the therapist or the counselor is telling you what to do. That's not true. No. We don't tell you what to do. We basically get our facilitators, and we are agents of change, meaning that we do the tools, and then it's basically up to you to be able to do that. And I'm gonna share a story as far as the notion of why me and some people struggle with the notion of health. Some years ago, when I was in high school, and back in North Carolina, it was something that we called Senior Week. Senior Week, would all the seniors would take that weekend after graduation, and you would go to the beach and have fun with your boys, and you out there trying to talk to girls, and all that kind of stuff, right? And so a group of my friends, and I know my friend is probably listening to this, man. I love you, bro. I got to tell this story, man. But so we were out. It was about 4 of us guys. We sitting in the ocean, and we're talking to a group of girls. And all of a sudden, another friend of mine, and we noticed that our friend was missing. And we happened to look out deep in the ocean, and he was drowning, bobbing up and down like a So my friend and I swam out to get him, brought him back to shore. And the first question we asked him was, bro, why didn't you scream and ask for help? Now, mind you, he could not swim. He could not swim. And then the answer that he gave us when we said, why didn't you ask for help? He said, I thought I could do it on my own.
Pride.
Now, I want you to hear the logic in that. You can't swim, but you thought you could do it on your own, where the waves were beating you up. The water was filling up your lungs, and you almost died because you refused to ask for help. So the stigma around that is that, and all of us have an ego. Most,
Yes, yes.
but it's really predicated to how well you tame it or not, right? And so because he allowed his pride in that situation to cause him to almost die. It's the same thing with our mental health. We are drowning emotionally and spiritually and mentally. We think we can do it on our own, and we won't ask for help. And so I think if we understand that we get past the pride and understand that, you can stick your chest out and still ask for help. You understand what I'm saying? So I think the stigma behind it is that the weakness behind it. If you have something that you struggle with, an illness or some sense of disability, then you're a weak person. You're not a strong man. You got to ask somebody for help. And so I think if we can get past the ending the notion of I'm me, myself, and I. You understand what I'm saying? You think that's the notion that we have to have, but that's not true. That's a farce.
And the analogy that you use is really good, because a lot of men, according to the statistics I read earlier, are literally drowning emotionally because they think that they can do it on their own, or when it comes to shame, they are ashamed to seek to help because of what other people may say, or the stereotype behind seeking mental help. So that's a good analogy. Matt, same question.
How does shame or stigma play a part in men discussing mental health? Well, I want to comment on the last statement that Kevin made and yourself. I believe the reason why a lot of men have that mindset of I thought I can do this myself, or I can do this myself, is because that's the teaching that's reinforced throughout most of our lives. Like we live in a society where it's always been taught be independent, but the way we were designed to be is interdependent.
Yeah.
So we have to revisit the ideology of always teaching people be independent, be independent. No, we need to start teaching be interdependent, because interdependent has a healthy balance of personal accountability, and also I know I can come to you if I need help. So that's what I just kind of wanted to touch on that. And then, but to answer the question, I believe the shame in discussing the topic itself, it presents itself because of the stigmas, and the stigmas were formulated because, again, like Kevin said, many men were taught that it's shameful and weak. When a man is mentally or emotionally distressed, or even simply having a hard time controlling the various stressors in their life, which leads to the bad advice that most of us get: just suck it up and be a man. Crying won't help. Being depressed ain't gonna help. You a man, do something about it. If you want your life changed, get up and change it. All this type reckless advice and such, will always prevent men from dealing with the root of their problems, because a lot of people deal with their problems. They just don't deal with them from a root cause analysis perspective. And then when you're surface, you begin to put layers on, and the more layers that come on, the more time that goes by. Thing that time heals all wounds. Time doesn't do anything unless you do something with the time.
Yeah.
So when you don't scrub and handle the roots of these issues, and a lot of men can't because they were taught this surface stuff. But I personally believe no matter all of the faulty mindsets and opinions and ideologies that you may have received, God will always put somebody else in your life to give you some wisdom as well. Now, whether we pay attention to the wisdom other people give, because I hear some people say, well, this is how I grew up. This is what my uncle taught me. This is what my dad. But like I told him, I said, just stop and think, meditate. Who has God sent in your life along the way to give you a better way of thinking?
Come on.
And then they'll begin to say, oh, I said, so now you have to hold yourself accountable, because God has sent somebody to tell you that it's okay to express your emotion. You don't always have to be strong. And that's something that we need to stop saying too, especially at the most inopportune times. A lot of times we tell people be strong, but that's probably not the best thing. And Kevin will probably attest to that, even being, a therapist or whatnot. So I think we just need to revisit the reckless advice that we give people. And sometimes it's not in bad spirits. A lot of people have good intentions, but intentions don't always equal impact. And just like, and I want to make this last point, just like with any other sickness, it takes carefully considered, it takes proper, it takes timely treatment, and the utilization of wellness tools in order to be made well, not just these simple statements or bits of advice that we give people and expect them to be healed and whole just because we told them, be strong, get over this, you're a man, do something about it. That's not going to happen. So
Right, and you brought up a good point that mental health is just like a physical ailment. When you go
yeah,
to a doctor, you don't want the doctor just to give you something to cure the symptoms. You want him to figure out the root cause of your illness. And it's the same thing with mental health. When you go, a lot of times the root cause starts from your environment as a child. I tell all of my clients, you have to start, we have to go back and
yeah,
reach back further than right here today. We have to go back from your childhood and find out the root cause of what's manifesting today. So that's a good point. The next question, Kevin. What factors can lead to mental health issues? As a therapist, what do you see as some of the root causes of mental health? And I know that Matt touched on that a little bit, but
Yeah, I think, as a therapist, a lot of times we are looking at what we call risk factors, right? There's no one specific risk factor that is the reason why a person has, mental issues or mental disorder. But I think there's three primary reasons. You have the or four. You have the biological, which may have a history of family mental illness.
yeah,
Now, what complications during pregnancy or at birth? See, a lot of times when you go to a doctor or a psychiatrist, a lot of times they ask you, were you C-section or were you vaginal? They just don't ask this kind of stuff just just to check a box. A lot of stuff plays into the mental stages of a person's life. So you have the family mental health issues, the complications during pregnancy or birth. You got history of traumatic brain injury, chronic medical conditions, excessive use of drugs or alcohol. Poor diet, lack of sleep. That's all the biological risk factors. When
right.
they're not in place, that's just biological. Now you have the psychological, where there is stressful life situations, whether you're struggling financially, just stressful life situations. You're struggling to raise your family. You're struggling to adjust to becoming a husband or wife or a son or a daughter. There's so many different other things. You have traumatic life experiences, whether they're big or small. So here's what I want to touch on as far as that. A lot of times people, when they think of trauma, they think of what we call in counseling victims. We went off to war or you saw somebody get killed. But just being, so a lot of times, I had a client the other day, people don't understand being ridiculed in front of people, that's traumatic. Being preached from the pulpit, knowing that you got the person's phone number, is traumatic. A lot of many different things which we can go into. So it's just a lot of different traumatic things, whether it's big or small. Whether you didn't grow, you didn't grow with both parents in the home. A lot of times that kind of stuff causes discord in the way that you think. A negative view on life, low self-esteem. Now, the social part of it, the social risk factor.
Yes.
Not having healthy relationships. Now, this is important. If you do not have healthy relationships, somebody that, for lack of a clinical term, somebody that can check you. Somebody that can say, you know what, hey, Kev, you tripping, bro. Kev, you might want to reconsider that, because what a lot of times when people are not emotionally healthy, they keep yes men or yes women around them, so that feeds and that encourages their dysfunction. So a person, if you notice all their relationships are unhealthy, something's wrong. Something is really wrong with that. Whether you were abused or neglected as a child, discrimination, racism. Now, I know we're going to touch on that in a little bit, but lack of access, and then then the spiritual component of it. I'm a born again believer of Jesus Christ. I am a disciple of Jesus Christ. Listen, when a person has a negative perception of God, but then when they think that they're irredeemable, I'm too far gone.
Yes.
These types of things begin to play in how what's in your heart, what you know to be true, and then what's going on in your mind. So,
right.
Those are many different things. That's the biological, the psychological, the social, and then the spiritual components of risk factors that, because there's some people that have maybe more than one in different area, but it really depends on that specific person.
Right. Matt, same question.
I want to comment on something that he mentioned. And I just posted a status about this today on Facebook. I put, it's okay to trust in Jesus and see a therapist, because we have this idea that you don't really trust in your relationship with God if you're going to see therapy. One of the things I explain to people, in the ministry, and just anybody I come in contact with, even at work, I tell them, listen, I said, I don't care what level you are in your relationship with Christ. I said, here's the thing. God don't always move supernaturally. And I'm about to back this up with an answer. Some things that's going to better our situation. I think sometimes we think if we pray, if we fast, God is just going to poof, and our depression is gone, poof, our anxiety is gone. But that's not how God works a lot. Now, there are things he will do supernaturally, but more often than not, if we're really praying, if we're really fasting, he's going to reveal, hey, you need to go see Kevin Gibson. You need to go have somebody to walk you through the healing and wholeness process, because the Bible does say there's safety in the multitude of counsel. And then the other side of this too is we have to start to change the mindset, the stigma that's in the church, that every bit of mental illness is demonic. Now, we have to change that. Like, everybody that's suffering from a mental ailment, mental health disorder, however you want to term it, doesn't mean they're demonically possessed. Now, I do explain it like this. Now, if we stay in a broken, a wounded state so long, it does put us into the hands of the enemy. It allows him to grab. But I tell people, stop saying everybody, you think you just get some oil and pray this away. But nevertheless, so we just need to bring some balance back to that and understand that we're more than just spiritual beings. We're mind, will, emotions. That's our soul, personality, appetite, all this stuff. And we have to take care of the whole person. But just to echo, what Kevin said, just for clarity's sake, in case anybody missed anything, he touched on genetics. Just like heart disease, just like diabetes, just like osteoporosis, and any other condition, as they say, run in your family. The same, like he said, with mental health disorders, it can run in your family. So face it, and there are things that we can do, even like cancer. If cancer runs in your family, we're predisposed to cancer, a lot of them think, especially African Americans. But there are things, lifestyle habits we can do to minimize our chances of developing those conditions. And the same thing with mental health problems. Even if it's in your family, there are things you can do, wellness tools, not living a sedentary lifestyle, that can contribute to you saying, okay, although my grandmother, my uncle, my grandfather faced this, I don't have to deal with this. Okay. So the second thing, like he mentioned, traumatic exposure. Listen, you don't have to just serve in a war like he mentioned. Like, listen, what's traumatic for one person can be normal for another person. Like, somebody can see a dog get hit by a car right now, and that becomes a traumatic experience for them. And if they don't handle those emotions and the various elements that comes as about of that traumatic situation, then they can drift into mental health problems. But another person may look at that and say, oh, man, that was just a dog. Oh, well. So we have to also be careful with undermining what people are going through. We have to be more sensitive, a little bit more understanding, and not downplaying the experiences of other people. The inability to control and minimize the stresses in life. Listen, people, and Kevin knows this. Stress is a normal part of life. It's the inability to put wellness tools and coping mechanisms. And when you let your stressors get out of control, then it becomes distress. And that's when stress is bad. You see what I'm saying? Denial that problems exist. When we deny and we act like it's nothing there when it is, just like when a check engine light comes on your car, like you know you should probably go get that checked out, but before you know it, you let it go and go and go, and now your alternator, your belt, your hoses, all this stuff is happening because you're supposed to get your engine checked out. The same thing with us. We can't deny because something this small can become something this big. So that's something I warn myself against, and I make sure I deal with things at the time, and I admonish other people to do the same. And then the last thing, and I believe Kevin also touched on this too, drug and alcohol induced. That can cause mental health problems. Now, I do want to nip this in the bud, the notion that everyone who abuses drugs and alcohol start off depressed or with mental health condition that drives them there. That's not true. That's not everybody's story. Because I know some people that have confided in me, even in pastoral counseling and all this. They'll say, "Listen, I wasn't abused. I came from a very loving, affirmative, supportive household. I didn't have traumatic experiences that would leave a lasting imprint as far as they can remember." But they say, "Listen, I want to have some fun. I want to do something different, and my curiosity got me into this addiction." And now the inside of that is once you do get hooked on drugs and alcohol, it can cause mental health problems. But I just wanted to just kind of touch bases and let people know just because someone has started drugs and alcohol doesn't mean they had a mental health problem to start off with. So.
Right. Thank you for that. And I also want to touch on what Kevin said, and as well as what you said. A lot of times when we see people that are going through different circumstances and situations in their lives, that's why we have to be so careful not to make judgment on it, because
True.
we don't know their biological situation. We don't know their social status. We don't know the psychological status of them. And then also what you touched on about you want to say, okay, just go to the altar, lay hands on, and you heal just like that. No, we have to stop. Say it's true. We have
Yeah.
to stop telling people that, okay, something is wrong with them because they went to the altar and they prayed and somebody threw some oil on them, and okay, the demon still is not out of them, so therefore something is wrong with them, so they got to repeatedly go back to the altar and get hands laid on and what. No, you have to go back to what we talked about earlier, the root cause of that problem, which stems from some of the things that Kevin spoke on, because we can't just say, okay, we going to put a Band-Aid on you and then we're going to send you on your way when you're still dealing and have not coped with those inner problems that possibly stem from something back in your early childhood. So that's one thing that really irks me really bad. And I'm a born again believer. I love the Lord. I love church. But that just burns me up when people just think that, okay, I can just pray and lay hands on you and you good to go. There's so many people that are, I just call them the walking dead, because they have not been healed, because the church have just told them, okay, let me just lay hands on you and get this demon out of you and send you on your way, because you don't need therapy. And even in the Bible tells us faith without works is dead. You need faith and you need work. Work is going to Kevin to seek help, to find out the root cause of what's really going on with me. And I have faith that when I go to Kevin, that through my faith in God and do the work that Kevin and I gonna do together,
Yes.
I'm gonna walk out healed.
Yeah.
So
I
that
want to jump back in on that just really quick.
okay.
I think it's important, something that Matt brought up. You have to understand, as like we were just saying, even if you look at it theologically or doctrinally, you just have to pray it away and pray and be done. That's it. That's just not theologically true.
Right.
And so if you are going to use the wisdom of God says He can use His will can be accomplished with man or without man. So understanding that means that God uses men and women to accomplish His will. So why do you think you go to a doctor if you got high blood pressure?
Mm-hmm.
You think you go to a doctor if you have cancer? Why do you think you go to a doctor if you just praying it away? Why are you taking medication?
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So logically and theologically, it doesn't make sense because you are compartmentalizing how you are going to allow God to use you or heal you. God can heal people. I'm a firm believer with the laying of hands. The scripture says that. But He also can heal through medicine. He can also heal through psychotherapy, therapy. So so the reason why it is because and we can do a whole podcast on that just to church.
Right.
The church has become therapeutic and not transformational.
Come on.
And so
Say that again, Kevin.
the church has become therapeutic and not transformational. In other words, you got a church full of broken people because they are walking around emotionalizing their worship and thinking that they're going to get healed sometimes through that. But then guess what? Sometimes when you offer that emotional high from the altar,
Yes.
you go sit down and talk to somebody and get some help. Because what happens is you do this rotation Sunday in and Sunday out.
Sunday in, Sunday out.
You go out of your invisible prison just to go to church. You bucking at the altar on Sunday, then you go right back home and back into your invisible prison. You see what I'm saying? And so we have to train. That's why we really have to train leaders and pastors to understand the importance of what mental health is and what it's. It's not to say that certain things are not linked to sin. The Bible says that sometimes it's linked to sin and it's linked to your decision making, but that's not always the case. That's why He says, if any among you are sick, lay hands. But first of all, if there is unconfessed sin, let the elders go talk to and do it that way. If there is no sin, then you know what? You need to go go to the doctor. Does that make sense? And so we change the narrative on what it means to be holistic. God wants us to be holistic in everything that we do.
Right, right. Thank you, Kevin. The next question. Do you think injustice, police brutality, and crime are factors in the undeveloped emotions of some men? And the key word in that is undeveloped emotions.
Yeah, I think when, especially I work with a lot of people, a lot of kids, a lot of teenagers in the inner city. And for years in a specific area in Miami, I was working at a school. Month after month after month, police brutality, murder, violence, murder. And you know what happened to those kids? They became desensitized to it. They would say to me, when something like that would happen, a normal reaction would be sadness. A normal reaction would be, I'm in a state of grieving, but they were just numb. Their emotions were numb, and they had a reaction, oh, just another one. And so what happens is, what it does is it trains the brain to be able to link that to certain type of situation. Does that make sense? And so if I'm experiencing a situation that is deemed despair or distress, my emotions are so blocked because of my prior experience. You see what I'm saying? So my prior experience allows my emotions to not be it allows me not to be fully emotionally regulated. And so it desensitizes it to the point where you are not able to express your emotions the way that your body and the way that your mind is designed it to be.
Right, right. So in other words, because of the repetitive abuse, injustice, they see it as, oh, it's just another day in the neighborhood with the same old. So then they become emotionally desensitized, like, oh, it doesn't affect me anymore, or as emotionally.
And another thing of what it does is something that we call, I forgot I was supposed to say this, but cognitive dissonance. And so basically, I'll give you an example of cognitive dissonance. So back in slavery, so in order for the slave owners to really treat Black people the way that they did, they had to rationalize and make sense that these are not humans, they're animals. So there was a disconnect from what you know to be true in your heart versus your head. And so what happens even when you experience a lot of people who are victims of police brutality, they begin to say that something that's in their head and heart don't match. Then they begin to say, my life doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This is just the norm. And so what happens, that's why we have to say Black Lives Matter, knowing that,
right?
Because there's some people that have been so desensitized to think that my life is insignificant to the next person, to somebody in the dominant society. So that's why when we say these types of phrases, it's just not repetitive. We're saying these types of things, just like my shirt says Black mental health matters. We say things over and over again because it's reducing that cognitive dissonance from the distance between what's up here and what's here.
What's in your heart?
You got to be able to make those things match.
So in other words, we have to affirm them and let them know, hey, your life matter.
Yes.
Your mental health matter, because they have become numb because of the environment around them and the repetitive abuse and psychological abuse.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. Matt, same question.
Let me just repeat it. Do you think injustice, police brutality, and crime are factors in the undeveloped emotions of some men? I'm going to answer it how I interpreted that question.
Okay.
I put there can be some elements to that, but I still say the major cause of undeveloped emotions in men has to do with how the media traditionally has portrayed the male role to be, and that's tough, the don't cry, the no emotion, the handle business, and the protect. And I put the other cause, in my opinion, as I mentioned earlier, is attributed to the fact that a lot of men are reared and shaped by unlearned men in their environment that have all of these weird, these odd, these unlearned found philosophies on life, With that being said, with all that's going on with the injustice, the police brutality, racism, crime, and things like that, I'll say this: men who have been taught how to properly acknowledge their emotions and how to properly channel those unhealthy, negative emotions do respond better to our societal woes. While the men that, probably had an adverse upbringing that were not taught how to acknowledge their emotions or how to properly channel those unhealthy feelings and thoughts and things like that, they respond to it, in a destructive manner. So I still think, and it's what we all say, because life is big. So, that's just the perspective I'm answering it from. I totally agree with what Kevin mentioned. I totally agree with what you mentioned. I just wanted to take it from the end of how we respond to what we see going on is ultimately going to be dependent upon, again, how we were shaped, how we were reared, who was in our life, who, if you were one of those men, like you said, there are some men like I was around. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, inner city. Went to an all black school and things like that. So I was around the drugs. I was around the alcohol. I grew up in a Christian home, but that was just the neighborhood, unfortunately, of a lot of Christian people. We lived in the hood. And I will see people get smoked. I see people get stabbed. But unfortunately, just because of the environment I was shaped in as it relates to my direct home life, and then the church, that I didn't become desensitized to that. I still know it's abnormal and it shouldn't be going on. But other people, that grew up in similar upbringings, even from similar Christian homes and things like that, they were desensitized from that. So it ain't nothing to them. So it irks me. Sometimes, I got a buddy now, like you could be watching a movie, like, like Boys in the Hood or Menace to Society. Like, you see somebody get their head blown off or get shot or stabbed. He was like, oh man, there ain't nothing funny about that. I still cringe. I'm 36 years old. So it just depends how you respond to that. Depends on your upbringing. But as it relates to the undeveloped emotions, again, your emotions can only develop, your emotional intelligence skills and things like that can only develop to the level of your upbringing, and the environment that you keep yourself in, even as an adult. So that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of something that you said. It's interesting. You said as far as your upbringing, and a lot of times with being in the inner city, that a lot of the many different things that you see causes you to react or lack thereof a certain way. And if you look at it, a lot of people in the inner city, a lot of the boys specifically, since we were talking about men, they're being raised by single mom.
Yes.
And so I'm going to say there are two primary ways in which a person learns. You either learn through precepts or you learn through practice. Precepts is the learning of rules of this is what you do, the regulations, this is what you don't do, this is how you do it. Practice is the learning of rules through modeling, through example setting. So women can teach manhood in precepts. So This is how you be a man. You don't do this, but you cannot teach a boy how to be a man in practice.
True.
And so what he's looking at sometimes, and so he's learning manhood in precepts, but what he's seeing is his mom respond emotionally to certain things when she went in the road or in the city. And so that's the nature that he begins to take on. And it's not to say that he's effeminate or anything like that, but that's just saying he just took on his mom's nature as far as on how he deals with problems, how he deals with situations. And that's just an exposure of what you grew up in.
And I think also, can I mention something?
Sure.
Okay. And it depends on what kind of mother you had, because we have to give room also. And I love what you said, Kevin. Yeah, sure. We have to give room for individuality because I come from a single parent home, but my mother, she was balanced. She was the mother that let me express, and I know we're going to get to that, but I just wanted to mention, she let me express myself, but she also instilled into me a certain level of toughness as well. And it's like my mother wasn't an overly emotional woman. From my experiences with her in 36 years, she's been a balanced woman. And a lot of stuff where women would have stopped and be like, and losing their mind. She like, listen, she dealt with her emotions and hey, we need to act on this and so we can keep ourselves safe. So I was privileged to, be around all women. But I've been privileged to be around balanced women that were not overly emotional, honestly, and that's not everybody's story as well. So I was able to preserve, my masculinity and things like that, but also be in touch with my emotional side and have balance with that.
And I agree with both of you guys, but I just want to also say, I believe if a person, a single mom is raising a child, they have to be emotionally healthy. Because if not, just like Kevin said, the result can be devastating because they will end up putting those unhealthy emotions onto their man-child. So I believe that the woman has to be emotionally healthy. If she has emotional baggage, then she's going to, in turn, put that emotional baggage, and that can go for a two household, not just for a single parent. It can be with anybody. If they emotionally unhealthy and they have issues, them kids are going to get some of them issues. So, next point. Do you think women contribute to the shame or stigma of mental health as related to men? And Kevin? And let me just I know we talked about the single woman. I'm thinking more of term of how men relate to women relate to men as far as how we talk to them, how we build them up, how we not that type of thing. That's what I'm
in that aspect. I'll say things what not to or what to do to debunk the stigma or the shame.
okay.
I think women they need to allow men to have a space to grow. Because we all of us are imperfect, and we all have our different flaws. So the grace, you got to be able to show that man grace, allow him space to grow, to grieve, but then also to mess up. Because and then how you respond to how he messes up will predicate on how he's going to bounce back. If you always beating him down, he's already getting beat up in the world. He's already getting beat up in the world. He's already getting beat up with the pressures of being a man in home, but also pressures of being a man in society. So I think if we understand the dynamic of, let me be sensitive to him. Let me. First of all men are not the same. Let me just say
right.
Because there's some men that you can, how you can talk to aggressively, and they respond better to that. Some men you can't talk to them that way because they go down in shutdown mode. So you really have to, as I said before, use wisdom and discern on just the overall structure of societal norms as far as men, but also tailor it to that specific brother that you're personally dealing with. So knowing that he has pressure on his back from just being a man in general, be sensitive to that and allow him room to grow, allow him room to heal at the same time. And also stop saying you need to command. Now sometimes that needs to be said. But it's all about perspective, like how you say it. The message can be delivered, but you also just need to know just how to love them. I think love covers a multitude. So if you're loving him and you're walking with him through his circumstance and his situation, he appreciates that more than somebody always telling him how wrong he is.
Yep.
That's a good point. Matt, same question.
Do you think women contribute to the shame or stigma of mental health as related to men? This is I jotted down some notes, and this is the angle I took the question from. I put yes, they contribute because many mothers, not all, who rear sons usually hinder them from expressing their hurt. They usually hinder them from expressing their pain, their sorrow, which a lot of us heard this, but a lot of mothers tell their sons, and let me say this before I finish that. Wounded boys become broken men. But you hear, you a boy, boys don't cry, boys are tough. And, while the intentions are good, like I said earlier, intentions don't always equal impact. And that type of rearing has ultimately become the mixture for broken men with undeveloped emotions. And I say this because, and then the women sometimes wonder why, when they look at these, when men get older, and they get into relationships, just in general. And I heard Steve Harvey say this: women will, babe, tell me what's on your mind. Tell me how you feel. What's wrong? And a lot of times, men don't know how because they've never been privy to the opportunity to share how they feel in general, let alone, their adversities, their challenges, their pains, their sorrows, and so forth. So a lot of men be wanting to scream like, I don't know how to share what's going on. I don't know how, to explain myself or to tell you what I'm feeling or what I'm thinking, and again, that's because a lot of times when you're in a box, like, as it relates to emotional intelligence, or being able to express your emotions, I should say, then when you get older, it's going to be the same scenario. And I want to just admonish the ladies. This is why, let your sons cry, because whoever they are as boys and what kind of experiences they have becomes the prime substance for who they're going to live out to be as a man. That's why I said wounded boys become broken men. Boys that are suppressed and they can't, express themselves. They can't cry. They say, "Get up, boys don't cry," all this type of stuff. Then that produces hardcore, callous-hearted men. And we can't fault them because, again, this goes back to environmental upbringing. Now, I will say this because I want to reiterate the point I made earlier. Although that could have been the primary environment that a lot of men were raised in, that's not the only environment. Because even if you did have a mother or aunt or somebody that just, "Boys don't cry, be tough. No, you can't cry. Ain't nothing wrong with you. Wipe your face clean." I don't believe God leaves us in the hands of only those people. So there were always somebody that comes along in life at various points, maybe a different mother figure, old lady down the street or an old church mother or something that give you a better way to think or that tries to shape the natural side and stop these men from becoming a machine. And like I said earlier, now it just depends. Then it becomes a choice of, okay, do I go with what I was raised in or reared in, I should say, or do, I go with what these people are telling me now that's, trying to take me from being a machine and try to help me become a human, and that's how it was with me because I had a lot of elements of don't cry, boys don't cry, and all this type of stuff. But thankfully, in the same regard, I had a lot of different women, that came in my life to try to balance that out, because sometimes even with my mother, she was balanced. Sometimes she was a little too hard. Don't cry, don't. And I didn't. And then she realized the error of her ways. But thank God, I had grandmamas, I had old mothers in the church. No, let that boy cry. Let that boy tell you how he feel. Because if you don't, he's not gonna know how to do this when he get older, and he's gonna be a machine. He's gonna be hard and callous. So I just kind of wanted to mention that. So, ladies, you got a son? Let them show their emotions. Let them share their hurts, their fears, their pains, their worries, their concerns. Even adolescents, teenagers, let them express this. Okay, but then you also, while shaping that environment, you also want to instill in them a sense of resilience and relentlessness. Okay, so that's where the balance comes. When saying, "Okay, I know I have my masculinity and I know how to be a man, but then I know how to be in touch with my emotional side and to express anger." Because we know whenever anything remains pent up inside, it's going to explode at the wrong time. It's just like you shake up a pot and then you open it. It's going to explode. You see? And that's what we don't want. We don't want suppression and things just happen because, man, I'm okay. I'm okay. No, it's like,
Yeah.
start letting people know it's okay. Let yourself out. Okay.
Right. And I would also say, like what Kevin said earlier, uh, the men are out in the world with the abuse from the police and all of the other different negative emotions that are going on. And when they come home, and if the woman is badgering and beating them, they have no
Yeah.
safe place to go. So therefore, they shut down because it's like, okay, I can't cry and show my true self out there. And then when I come home, I'm still like, so where do I go? And then all of these pent up emotions end up being depression, stress, all of that. And that's when the mental health train comes in. So, Kevin, did you want to piggyback off of anything that Matt said?
No, he hit it on the head. He hit it on the head. But what I think I see a comment. I'm not necessarily saying that men who were raised by single mothers are not emotionally healthy. That's not what I'm saying. I think somebody misunderstood what I was saying.
Right.
What I was saying was that a lot of times that's the reaction that you get is because when somebody is not emotionally healthy, it's due to not being able to have that balance. Everything is all about balance. Everything's about have healthy emotions. You also need to have the logical aspect of it as well. So I just really wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The next question. Since men and women are affected by mental health issues in different ways, such as the symptoms and the triggers, what recommendations do you have to improve the mental health of men?
Well, I think just going back to what we said earlier, you really have to examine your risk factors, right? But then there's also the flip side to that. The positive aspect of it is what we call protective factors. It's the same thing with the social, the biological, and the spiritual. So you got to be able to make sure that you have healthy relationships, that you're eating right, that you're exercising. Because if you what a lot of people don't understand about that aspect of it is this: you don't understand that each organ in your body. I want y'all to hear this. Each organ in your body is connected to an emotion.
Yeah.
It's connected to an emotion, and so a lot of times, if it's fear, you'll feel it in certain particular parts of your body. If you're happy, you feel it in certain parts of your body. You're sad, and a lot of times is that you just have to become self-aware of these types of things, even as it relates to health. Scientists say that your digestive system is considered your second brain.
Yeah.
Your second brain. So a lot of times when not all, but a lot of people who struggle with digestive stuff, they got irregular bowel movements, they have the leaky gut. A lot of that stuff, if it's not attributed to a medical condition, it's because you're holding on unresolved pain. Unresolved pain, it just
That's true.
Yeah, a lot of times when a person could be in therapy, they also got stomach aches. There's something wrong, and we get down to it. It's because they got unforgiveness in their heart.
Yes.
You're telling the truth.
They're holding on to it, and they refuse to let they're holding on because it embodies the pain body that they enjoy, that they become so used to. So being able to know your risk factors, but also exercise your protective factors. But listen, at the end of the day, I think all of us should experience therapy in some way.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that.
Whether you think you're whole or whether you're broken, I think because we all, it don't matter if you grew up in a Christian home or not. Your parents didn't do everything. They were flawed. Their flaws impacted you as an adult. So because of that, some of the way you make decisions, the way you handle conflict, you may be married and you saw your parent when they got into an argument or something, they may be abusive, or guess what? Or they may just not talk to each other for 2 months.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
That's good, Kevin. That's good.
Same thing. And you don't even know why you're doing these things, but guess what? When you seek out professional help, somebody that is spirit led, but it's also qualified.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because your heart can be in the right place with being spiritual, but you might not have the tools.
You might not have the knowledge.
That's not to say that pastoral counseling is irrelevant. There's a place for all of that. There's a place for spiritual counseling. There's a place, but when you have there's a lot of times you just incorporate both.
Yeah.
Just incorporate both.
Preach.
Incorporate both of them together. Because once I see a person, they you don't force your religion, you don't force your beliefs on anyone. But once somebody says something about they believe in God, Jesus, and they start bringing up scriptures, that's free game.
Yeah.
That's free game. But I mean, I can go on. But I mean, I just think there's just really minimize and reduce it. Seek out the help. And if you and guess what? Sometimes you may go to somebody. You might not. It's not a one-stop shop. You might not like the person that you went to. They might not be for you. Okay.
Yep.
Then you go until you find somebody that's helpful. Now that don't mean just if somebody calls you out on something that you're doing that's an inconsistency about what you believe. I don't like they called me out, so I'm going to the next one. No, that's not what I'm saying. But somebody that can help facilitate and foster some change in your life.
That's good, Kevin. Matt, same question.
Real quick, before I tackle that question, I'm gonna get to it, but I wanted to mention, and he alluded to it. Listen, people, I'm a pastor, and I'm gonna tell you, pastors don't have everything you need. People of God, I know contrary to what we've been taught in the black church, your pastor got everything you need. That's a lie. That's just like a primary care doctor. You in end-stage renal disease, and you say, I don't want to go see a nephrologist. I want to go see my primary care doctor. Or you congestive heart failure. I don't want to go see the cardiologist. I want to see my primary care doctor. So, pastors, if you're watching, leaders, bishops, apostles, whatever your title is, listen, you don't have everything everybody needs. Learn when to step back and put them in the hands of somebody that can walk them through. And I have enough wisdom to know that. And I'm not going to have no blood on my hands and cause people to remain in their broken states and wounded states just because I want to get some practice and see if I can walk through it. No, we going to bring somebody else in this picture so we can do this together. Now, as it relates to recommendations to improve mental health, number one, and I posted a status about this the other day, take some time to unplug from all media, social media, TV, turn off the cell phone and just rest and relax. That's something that a lot of people have a hard time doing. I mean, turn off everything. And I challenged them on Monday, the people at House of Love. I said, listen, we're going on a fast. Forget turning down your plate. I want you to eat. I want you to give up something that's going to be challenging to you. Turn off that phone. No Netflix, no TV shows, no post. And I said, in fact, and I told somebody, I said, stay logged into your account because that's going to show you if you really got self-control. Them notifications come through and you be willing to press. I said, so just unplugging, like, taking yourself out of society, letting your mind breathe. It's a form of meditation. Number two, using great discretion with what you read, what you listen to, and what you entertain. You can't expect to have, if you have a mental health condition, you can't expect for it to improve, or if you're having some warning signs that may be pointing towards a mental health or emotional distress. You can't expect, yourself to be able to keep an upper hand if you're reading the wrong stuff, if you're listening to the wrong stuff, you're entertained by the wrong stuff. So you have to use great discretion with that. Journaling, I'm big. My organization is called Journaling Saves Lives. So I admonish people, even when nothing is wrong, journal, stay proactive. And I believe Kevin mentioned this earlier. You have to stay proactive. That's called staying ahead of the game. I recommend to get all of the negative emotions, the negative thoughts and feelings and things out. But even when it comes to good, even when you don't have particularly any challenges or adversities at that time, still journal. It just keeps you, free flowing inside and not so backed up because something is going to happen. And, if you don't make a practice out of journaling, and the reason why I stress journaling so much, just so you'll know to bring some context to it, you don't always want to dump into somebody else what you're going through. And journaling provides an outlet that a lot of therapists and counselors recommend to give you that outlet without feeling like, okay, because I don't know about anybody else, but I don't want to always have to call my mother or my uncle or even my wife. I don't even want to always have to dump on her. So I crack open that journal, and guess what? I let it have it, sometimes for 2 and 3 hours. And it may not change the situation, but it changes how I process and how I see the situation. So that's another thing. And just 2 more things I want to mention. Kevin mentioned this a few times, and I want to echo it a third time. Proper exercise and nutrition. You cannot, you can go to therapy all day. You can go to church all day. If you're not putting the right stuff in your body and you live in a sedentary lifestyle, your mental health condition that you may already have is going to grow worse. Or if you don't have one, you're going to be embarking on developing one. And like I said before, and I want to echo this again, a sedentary lifestyle is a friend of mental health disorders.
Yeah.
Right.
And he said this too. And it's amazing. And I have to echo this because in case somebody came in and missed this, make wiser choices with the people you are connected to. It is a proven fact that if you have poisonous, unhealthy, unproductive relationships, friendships, connections, it is going to have an adverse effect on your mental health. And so I just encourage you all, watch your circles. Listen, I always say, and I say this as a joke and then I'm done. My circle is so small, it's a period. And I keep it like that. And that's why I can stay in good mental and emotional health.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you, guys. And I just want you guys to, starting with Kevin, just leave one word of encouragement for any men that may be out there that want to seek mental health, but the shame or the stigma is holding them back. So just end with a couple words to that man.
In Genesis chapter 2, when God, he made Adam in chapter 1, but in chapter 2, when he talked about for this cause, a man shall leave his father and mother. When he used the word man in the Hebrew, that's the word for champion.
Mhm.
And so when I want you to understand, when God made Adam and when he made you a champion. And guess what? And it's okay for champions to be down. But the fact of the matter is, all you have to do is get up and seek that help, improve yourself. And all it takes is just one step. We're not asking you to take 5. We're just asking you to take 1. That one step to say, you know what? I need some help. And guess what? It's okay. And it really is okay. That one step, all the angels in heaven are rejoicing because you made that one step.
Right. And Kevin, let the audience know, how can they connect with you?
Yes. So I'm a part of a network, Impact Family Christian Counseling Network. If you just go to the website, impact.vision. That's impact.vision. And then also we're doing Zoom sessions now due to COVID restricting us from not being in the office. Again, that's impact.vision. But then also, if you want to email me, it's kevin@impact.vision. That's kevin@impact.vision. I'm on Facebook as Kevin Gibson. I'm on Instagram at K_Gibson704. Thank you so much.
And also, Kevin, when we get off, can you just go on my page and type all of your info in there?
We'll do.
So that we'll have it? Okay. And Matt, same question. What would you like to leave the men tonight as encouragement to seek help if they need it?
I would leave this with them. You're not a machine. You're a human. You feel, you think, you express, and you have to be okay with knowing that it's okay as a man to express your emotions to outlet. Because the more you suppress, you can begin to do internal damage. And if we serve God, God is the creator of all. And God feels, God thinks, God expresses. So we're no different, we're no greater than God. So I would say it's okay to cry. It's okay to express emotion. We just need to get the men that are not in the environments of health that are healthy and conducive. I want to encourage you and pray that God brings somebody your way, brings a group of men, or even if it's just one man your way, to just give you an environment that's safe, that provides psychological safety, where you can be open and honest about how you feel without being degraded or demasculated. So that's what I would say to the men. Just you're human. You're not a machine.
Thank you. And how can they connect with you, Matt?
Okay, on Facebook, Journaling Saves Lives. I have a group page. Please join the community. And then I also have a community business page, Journaling Saves Lives. And then you can also get me on Twitter, Journaling, S like Sam, L like Leroy, USA. So that's Journaling, SLUSA on Twitter. And then feel free to reach out to us through email. If you're looking for any type of mental health resources, or you just need a chat or whatever, the email is journalingsaveslives@yahoo.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt. And please put your information on my page in the comments for those
Yes,
that would like to connect with you.
yes,
And
ma'am. Will do.
I would like to thank both of you gentlemen for joining me tonight on Live Chat with Audrey. This was an awesome conversation.
Yes.
And I am sure that the audience enjoyed it. And I would say that they need to share it so that the men in their lives can hear it and engage with it at their leisure and just be encouraged and empowered by it. And I want to thank you for joining me on Live Chat with Audrey. And you could connect with me at Facebook at Audrey F. Brooks, on Instagram, Audrey F. Brooks. And I just want to thank you guys. This was an awesome session. It is much
Great
needed.
job, Kevin. Good information, man. I learned so much from you. Seriously.
Good job, bro.
Yes. Thank you, Kevin. Of course, me and Kevin connected a couple of years back. He was a guest speaker for me, probably about 2-3 years ago. Yes. So Kevin and I know each other. He's awesome at what he does. So me to connect with both of you guys because you both are leaders in what you do. So it would be wise for them to connect with both of you.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I want to thank you guys for joining me. And you have a blessed night and be safe.
Wonderful.
Thank you. You as well. Have a good evening, both of you.
All right, thank you.
Brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most definitely.
All right. Thank you so much.